Welcome to Career Chats. In this episode, we speak to Zoe Sinclair, an expert on achieving a healthy work-life balance. After originally focusing on helping working parents, the remit of her organisation, Employees Matter, has expanded to offer expert support to all employees on bridging the gap between life and work. Tune in to find out how you can improve your work-life balance.
Today we're looking at work-life balance. How can you achieve it? Is it even possible? Our guest today left a career as a producer at the BBC to set up an organisation devoted to helping working parents, which resulted in, amongst other things, the Bring Your Child to Work initiative. That organisation has since grown, and its remit today is to support all employees in their personal lives, from carers and families to women and LGBT people. The organisation is called Employees Matter, and its founder is Zoe Sinclair. Welcome, Zoe. So we'll talk a bit about your background in a moment, but first let's cut to the chase. What is a healthy work-life balance? Is such a thing possible? I mean, is it the same for everyone? We kind of find it a difficult thing, but does it really exist?
I actually think that the term work-life balance isn't the right term to be using anymore, because I think it's difficult to find the right balance. I think it's about work-life integration, because I think there's a real difference now that work goes into life, life goes into work, and they all merge. And yes, we get out of kilter in one area sometimes and in another area other times, and often it's never completely balanced all the time. I don't think that's realistic.
So it's not possible, is what you're saying?
I don't think the concept of work-life balance is possible, but I think it's easy to find tips and hints that work for you that can give you a healthier work-life integration.
Okay, that's really interesting, because I want to get onto tips. We will do that. But why do you think so many of us find it so difficult to achieve work-life balance integration, as you put it?
I think we all lead such busy lives now. And I think in the past, going way back, we went to work and we came home. Now there is a complete blur of boundaries, obviously with social media, with phones that you're constantly on. I know we hear a lot of that all the time, but it is a huge part of it. And I think it's very, very difficult for us to switch off. So work comes into the home, and more importantly, sort of from where I set up my business, home goes into work as well. And we never switch off on either. And we're trying to do both of them all the time.
I'm a recovering reporter, so, the world of journalism is busy. There's lots of deadlines. But frankly, every job is busy. There are always lots of deadlines. What kind of moved you into this line of work?
So I was pregnant with my first child. And at that time, I absolutely loved my job. I was making television programs. I was traveling all around the world, interviewing people, producing programs. And no doubt about it, I loved everything that I did. And I always thought I would go back full time, nothing would change. But it did change for me. And for me, going back to work 5 days a week, bearing in mind this was at the time when maternity leave was about 5 to 6 months. So I went back to work when my baby still wasn't sleeping through the night, still wasn't on solid food. It was very, my baby is about to turn 17, so this was a long time ago, it feels like, a bigger baby now. And I felt, for me, I couldn't do the job that I wanted to do in 3 days a week, and I didn't want to work 5 days a week. When you go out filming, it's a 12-hour filming day. I couldn't just say, hey guys, I'm going now, you all carry on. For my job, it didn't work. And so my idea was to set up something that would try and ease the pressures and in my sort of blinkered world at the time, first-time parents. And that's what I tried to do. I stayed at the BBC, actually, and the BBC were fantastic, and I was one of the first job shares that they put in place, and they really invested in that, because I did Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and my colleague did Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, so they were investing in that, and I was ever grateful to them for doing that. But after I had my second child, I realised that I wanted to try and make the workplace a little bit better for other working parents. And it was at that time where government were beginning to talk about extending maternity leave. People were talking a little bit more about dads and their time off as well than they had been. And so there was definitely change was on the horizon. So for me, this was coming at kind of the right time. So reluctantly, and I have to say reluctantly because I really, really mean it, I loved my years at the BBC, I really did. But I felt that the time had come that I needed to set up something new on my own.
And so you took a big decision there, which was to not return to the BBC and then to set up your own organisation. And before it was called Employees Matter, it was called Parents Matter, right?
Yes.
So that in itself is not an inconsiderable kind of challenge, considering you just had a second child and you want to kind of you have this cause now, which is to make the workplace better for parents. What do you see as the biggest challenges that parents face in the workplace?
It's still not the easiest thing, but we've come a long way. We have childcare vouchers, we have longer maternity leave, we had shared parental leave. There's so much more now than there was then. But I think then it was about raising awareness, if you like, of the, I don't mean it to sound so awful, but the plight of the working parent. And I think companies were very willing to open their doors when I was saying, this is difficult for working parents, put on a few networking events internally for working parents, let them come together, let them talk about the challenges of coming to work having had no sleep that night because that baby was up all night and you're in the middle of doing some sleep training program or you're in the middle of weaning or something like that, and show parents that you appreciate them, and that you understand the difficulties they might be going through. And I think before then, I don't think necessarily working parents had a voice.
So that's encouraging to hear that from you, that you do believe it has progressed. And I think you've pointed already to some good evidence of the ways that it has. What about what needs to be done still? Where is more work needed?
I think there'll always be more work needed. I think in some organisations, I still hear of jackets being left on seats to show that actually they're still there, but actually they've popped out to the school concert quickly. And I do still hear that. I think that the shared parental leave, the take-up figures have not been good enough.
Why is that? Because it is now, as I think I'm right in saying, equally available to men as it is to women, and yet the figures show it's still massively women that do the lion's share of it.
I think there is a lot to be said that despite the fact that we're moving towards a lot of parity in pay between both genders, sometimes one of the couple earn a lot more than the other, and therefore in that situation it's much harder for one of those people to take time off work. When there is more balance in the two people earning the same amount of money, then you will find those are the people that are more likely to be taking it up.
Why did you decide to change the slight tone of the organisation?
I have to say, it was my clients that wanted to change the tone. We'd started to do an awful lot of work in the parent arena, supporting working parents by sending in experts in their field on education, on work-life integration, on sleep, on nutrition. And HR directors were coming to me and saying, Zoe, this has been a real success and this is a real engagement tool for our working parents. But there are many people in our organisation that are not working parents, and we need to engage them as well. And it soon became very clear that even if you're not a parent, you come to work with stuff. You are a person, and we all have things in our lives, and HR wanted to acknowledge those people and support those people as well. I know I've said this a few times, but this work-life integration, it goes up and down. And when you have a really bad time where a million things are needed from you, sometimes it gets too much. And that's okay. It's okay to say, I've just got too much. I need to take some leave. And going back to that me time and that leave, I've seen fantastic people have the strength to be able to say, I need a break. and they go away for a couple of weeks. And it doesn't mean going away and booking a holiday, but actually taking me time and staying at home and not looking at emails, not looking at their computer, and they come back refreshed, re-energized and ready to go. And I think there is absolutely I wouldn't want anyone to feel nervous or scared about doing that, because if they couldn't talk about that to their manager or someone senior, and if that's not the right place for them to be working.
That's what employees are doing, but what can employers rather do to ensure that the situation maybe doesn't arise in the first place? Are there policies and schemes that they could implement that can help people?
Yeah, and I think prevention is definitely a huge piece that needs to be looked at, rather than sort of this constant reaction that we have. The whole diversity and inclusion agenda that we have today is really growing, and I think companies are really doing their very, very best to create more inclusive cultures. And the work that we have seen, growing numbers of internal networks, whether it's LGBT, cultural networks, parent networks, all sorts of things, I think that really is paving the way for like-minded people to come together to have a voice. To create change in their organisation, whether it's, I mentioned before about keeping in touch days for parents. Some companies have never had anything like that before, and it's just a group of parents coming together in their internal parent or family network that campaigned internally to get that. I think, flexible working is another piece, agile working, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a huge amount to be said for companies looking at how they can enhance their employees' work life. I only recently this week spoke to somebody who is implementing a 4-day week in their company.
Idea.
Absolutely. Listen, not easy, but the retention of the 4-day week and the awareness that it's creating is, I think that's going to be a real force to be reckoned with in the workplace. You're
an expert in this, in work-life integration. You mentioned you have 2 children. They're kind of nearing the end of their teens, I guess. What ages are they exactly?
15 and 17.
15 and 17. How do you feel you've done over the years as a parent and in achieving work-life integration?
That is a very good question. And you know what? I would love to tell you that I have been the best parent ever. Of course I haven't. And I know there are times, absolutely, I know there are times where work has come first before my children. And that is not a good feeling. But I think the key also to a great relationship with your kids is also being open and honest with them. And that doesn't happen the putting work first does not happen first all the time. And if it does happen first all the time, then I think, there's something going wrong. But I think for me, the best parent I could be is one where my kids are also proud of what I do and are proud to have a working mum, and that they are able to say to somebody, if they say to them, what does your mum do? That they're able to say, oh, my mum does X, Y, and Z. And that if I'm not around for one night, that they're still talking to me the following morning, and that we can still catch up very quickly, and that it's okay, that you haven't been around, and that they don't always come first. It's not so terrible for them, and they're growing up to be great kids, so it's something I'm very proud of.
To hear more from our guests, including their extraordinary careers and expert advice on topics such as workplace inclusion, mental well-being and work-life balance, make sure you subscribe to the Career Chats podcast, available on Audioboom, Apple Podcasts or Spotify, to get the episodes as soon as they drop.